This week, angry man tries to open email, hologram takes on human form, and the X Factor reaches a new low. I've had enough of old tech. It's all going obsolete, or so it seems. Even desktop computers' days are numbered. Right, let's see what they got for us this year. The Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is the place to find out. It's where the new products and concepts are launched for 2018, and some of them might just change the world. One of the highlights of CES for me is always finding out how bendy LG is this year. Previously they've been slightly bendy, and then they were quite bendy. This year, I think they've nailed it. It's a 65-inch roll-up 4K display, and the image quality really is very, very good. And it does roll completely up into, admittedly, a fairly chunky box. It's an OLED display, the only display tech that can be fully flexible. The circuitry is built on a segmented back, so it's a bit like a retractable garage door. You can actually choose how far the screen rolls out. As well as a widescreen TV, it can be used as a thin notification bar, a wider format 21:9 cinema screen, and of course, nothing at all. The argument is that you can make use of the space behind it when you're not using it. And of course, in South Korea, a lot of people live in high-rise blocks of flats. Can you imagine lugging a 65-inch TV up the stairs or even getting it into the lift? Much easier if you can roll it down into a handy tube. Elsewhere, there are plenty of other things to see and play with here at CES. Here's a phone from Chinese company Vivo, which doesn't have a fingerprint scanner on the back. That's because it has one built into the screen. The OLED display shines light onto your thumb, and an optical scanner buried underneath registers what it sees. Here's the LinkFlow Fit 360, a necklace with 3 cameras that together live stitch to make a 360 video, so you can record a true first-person view of your experience, so others can feel like they were truly there too. Now, it's important to catch the eye at shows like these, which is hopefully what this thing is doing. This is the Hypervision display by Kinomo, and it's capable of projecting life-size images high above the show floor. All right, sexy, thank you, that's enough from you. Now listen, here's the science bit. Here we've got 24 rapidly spinning LED strips, and as they go round, they're flashing different colors, which gives you the illusion of a persistent image. And in the flesh, I have to say, it does really look rather good. All right, don't build up your part. Oh, good grief. Okay, enough flimsy flim-flam from me. Let's get Lara Lewington now with some of the big announcements from this year's show.
And what a week it's been with news from tech's biggest players.
Including the likes of Intel saying it will release software fixes to repair security issues surrounding its chips.
Good morning, Dave.
We've had press events that have gone wrong with disobedient robots from LG.
Chloe is not going to talk to me. Chloe doesn't like me, evidently.
And Sony's robot dog wasn't that responsive either.
Aibo is an autonomous robot and will quickly become a member of your family. Right, Aibo? Ignored me there.
Meanwhile, a lack of female keynote speakers has caused controversy amongst attendees.
A situation which has led to raised eyebrows, compounded by the inclusion of robotic pole dancers at a strip club near the event. And on the show floor, as usual, TVs were everywhere, but this one really stood out. Samsung Wall is 146 inches wide and can be made even larger by adding modules. And finally, Toyota's unveiled its new autonomous e-pallet vehicle. It can be used for ride-sharing, deliveries, or even a moving storefront that comes directly to you.
That was Lara. Now, one of the big themes of the moment is wireless charging. That normally means putting your phone on a pad, but it is also possible to send power through the air. One of the problems with wireless power is that power is sent in every direction at the same time. So wherever your device is, it only receives a tiny fraction of that power. Well, here's a system that gets around that by sending focused beams of power to one particular point. The power transmitter can be built into ceiling tiles, walls, tables, or parts of the furniture. All it needs to know is which direction to point the power in. Now here's the science bit. To work that out, the device needing the power sends out low power signals in all directions, most of which are blocked by nearby objects. But the signals that do bounce around and reach the transmitter come in at particular angles. Now by sending the power back at exactly the same angles, that power bounces about and eventually gets back to the device. The makers told us that they can achieve 2 watts of power at a distance of 1 metre, which impressively is about half the power of a smartphone charger. I'm using this light to detect the power beams between the transmitter and the black box receiver.
Think about your home where you have smoke detectors. Think about that smoke detector that starts beeping at night because it runs out of battery. You can power that remotely, never have to charge the battery again.
But with high power beams lancing about your home, you may be wondering, is it safe?
This technology is entirely safe, and we look to get FCC approval for safety that certifies the technology as safe. So if you have accepted Wi-Fi into your home, accepting Kota technology would be the same.
In the future, the power receivers could be made into any shape, including that of a AA battery. And that means that ordinary devices could be converted to wireless power without any modification at all.
For a long time, bricks and mortar shops have been trying to keep up with online retailers who have the added benefits of being able to keep track of their customers' habits as well as provide very easy ways of paying. Well, here's one way that we could see some of those features brought into the real world by retrofitting existing stores. iPolly just uses off-the-shelf cameras, one up here to track the customers and others underneath here to take a look at the products and the customers' interactions with them. But the real work is happening here in the AI algorithms, where it's recognizing all the products off the shelf and the customers' interactions with them. But the AI is using the main camera here to keep track of what customers are doing throughout the store. It can recognize faces, identify clothes, and follow their movements. Through the combination of the customer being recognized and the products that they're picking up being identified, when they get to the checkout, they don't even need to scan the items. They just need to pay. And if they agree to being remembered for next time, then all they need to do is go and pick up their products and they can take them away.
One thing which isn't making such a big noise this week is virtual reality. Is VR in the last chance saloon? Billions have been poured into VR, but the headsets just aren't selling in the way the companies had hoped. There are multiple problems. The setup is too difficult. The content is not compelling enough. And unless it's treated very carefully, the VR experience can and has made me feel sick. The manufacturers are not going to give up on this though. The Oculus Go will be launched around March. Now that's a bit like Samsung's Gear VR, only you don't need a phone for it to work. It's all built in, and it will be around $200. HTC announced here that they're to release the Vive Pro later this year. It's a 3K headset which will improve resolution significantly and keep the Vive ahead of the field.
And while Oculus allows 3 degrees of movement, which is that way, and that way, HTC has just launched its Vive Focus in China, which allows 6 degrees of movement, which is that, and also 3 dimensions of movement in space. And that's using inside-out tracking, which means there are no sensors or lighthouses telling you where the headset is. The headset itself works out where it is in the environment. Now, this is the next level for VR.
Still, with Magic Leap releasing its augmented reality HoloLens-alike later this year, and with tons of AR activity here, like this from Horizon, a cheap flat pack way of building your own AR headset using a cardboard kit and a phone.
VR continues to face a tough battle with AR, which just seems a bit more ready to make its mark, if you ask me. I feel better for that. Anyway, time to move on now. Here comes Lara with some high-tech ways to stop thieves.
At this year's show, a fair few anti-theft devices have been launched, and I've got my hands on some of them. And this is a prototype burglar prevention system. It aims to replicate what a house looks and sounds like when you're home. So through the app, you can preset it with the way that you live your life, when you're going to be playing music, watching a film, talking in the kitchen, and when the lights are going to be going on and off. Or you could simply...
Hey, you got a permit for those guns?
Quite worried about what's happening in the house?
What an answer from Georgia! 75 yards!
Eventually, the plan would be that a group of synchronised devices could work through the house to make it look like natural movement from room to room. But of course, that would add to the cost.
And this is a smart safe.
Now, I have to admit, when I received it, I did think this is very light, very flimsy, and how could it possibly be a safe? Because you could just steal this if you had something valuable inside. But anyway, it seems that the technology here could actually be used in bigger, stronger safes, and this particular model is possibly better for putting medicine in, or just something that you want to keep away from the kids or other people visiting your house. So, how it works. It of course connects via a smartphone app, which means that you can remotely open the safe, should you wish to actually do that, and you'll also receive alerts if anybody tries to tamper with it. So let's set it up somewhere that it can remain in a steady place. This particular model has wings that extend to hold it into place. So if I put it here at the back of the shelf and do this, let me put something in here. Let me try and tamper with it and see what happens. At least it's quite firmly attached. Although, a little bit more force, I could probably pull it out. Yeah, there we go. Right. No, I'm off with the safe. Oh, looks like it could be quite easy to open as well. Omar, you got any ideas? Oh dear. Let me try and find something that might be a bit better for security. It's not just about the home though. This bag aims to keep your belongings safe when you're out and about. So if you're on a train or a plane and you've had to leave your bag somewhere else, then you might want to activate this tamper alert, which uses this RFID card to turn it on and off. So if anybody tries to open your bag, and it sounds like that. Phew.
But if the issue is actually you forgetting things, then this loss prevention device aims to come to the rescue. Now you can attach it to any given item and the company's software will learn your habits. So what time and where you take that item, and if you do something that seems out of the ordinary, they can send you a reminder before you've even had the chance to forget it. Eventually, they're even hoping to be able to do things like access travel details through your email, so you could get a reminder to pick up your passport without running the risk of leaving without it. The device does still seem a little bit big right now, but they are trying to get a smaller version ready ahead of launch. Great if it works, which was generally the theme with most of what I tested.
That was Lara, and this is the Valo Copter. It's a passenger drone made by a German company, and this one actually has flown. We're constantly reminded that the future of transport is going to be amazing here at CES, although there's no guarantee that that is true. Case in point, remember the Faraday Future electric car? No? Well, that's show business. Anyway, while Faraday gets its future in order, enter Byton. Now, this is a startup staffed by some pretty impressive people who've come up with basically a computer on wheels. Will this car actually work? Well, Dave Lee was given exclusive access to it before and during CES.
Now, I'll be honest, this wasn't the most thrilling test drive of my life. Worried about being spotted before their big CES unveiling, the team behind the Byton car only let us drive slowly around an unmarked warehouse just off the Las Vegas Strip. But it was very interesting. The company has created what's essentially a mobile supercomputer. They say it has more in common with your smartphone than it does a typical car. And I agree. For the first time, I've been impressed by a car not because of its performance on the road, but because of its operating system.
The vision behind Byton is we want to be the company bringing into the market the first real smart car.
The vehicle has been designed and created by a suitably qualified team made up of former BMW and Apple engineers. Inside, you'll see the dashboard has been completely reimagined. The gesture control system does look a bit imprecise and quite fiddly, not ideal when you're driving along a motorway at 70 miles an hour.
This looks like a really distracting driving situation, so isn't this actually quite dangerous to have this in front of you?
So the key is about customization. When you are in drive mode, we will actually disable certain features. You won't be able to get into watch videos, for instance. What we want to try to build is a platform where when there is autonomous driving, all occupants in the car, including the driver, have the ability to interact.
Some of the most exciting features of the Byton car are actually going to be disabled until we live in a world of fully autonomous driving. So perhaps think of this vehicle as bridging the gap between our dumb driving past and our smart driving future.
Now, of course, you can't reveal a car at CES without an expensive, lavish launch event. This one went by without a hitch, and people seemed impressed.
It's a really interesting idea, but they're really trying to target it at an affordable price point. $45,000, about half the cost of the Model S when that came out. Again, 250 to 325 miles of range, so they're hitting all the right marks and adding all this cool technology in, so I think they've got a pretty good message here.
If you think all this seems a little familiar, you're right. This was the scene at last year's CES when I covered new car company Faraday Future. Back then, they told us everything was going swimmingly and that their big new factory was going to be built soon. But in less than a year, the factory in Nevada has been scrapped, and while the company insists it's still pressing ahead, Faraday Future is in serious danger of becoming a thing of the past. So what will happen to Byton? The biggest challenge facing them right now is to do with charging. Tesla has more than 8,000 superchargers for its cars dotted all over the world. Byton has none. They think Tesla should share theirs. And when it comes to actually making the car, Byton is building its own factory in Nanjing, China, and they've promised their car will be put into production by the end of 2019 and will one day cost $45,000. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that goes.
That was Dave Lee, and there'll be plenty more transport on next week's Click. In the meantime, I'm having my nails done. This is the O2 Nails printer. Choose any image you want, and they'll print it onto your nail. Of course, I chose a picture of myself. Okay, Richard Taylor and Nick Queck, beat that.
Refreshing. So this device is actually creating a vacuum in my mouth. It's sucking at my gums, but at the same time circulating a flow of water around my teeth. It's intended for users with reduced mobility or people that in general have difficulty brushing their teeth, because it replaces the need to brush and floss too. The guys are working on integrating sensors into future devices so that oral hygienists or dentists will be able to diagnose and treat for gum disease. And it's quite tickly too.
This is Mia, and it's being marketed as the world's first smart baby feeding monitor. You put your baby bottle, any baby bottle, into the device. It has a temperature sensor to make sure that the milk in the bottle is the right temperature for the baby. It has a motion sensor which flashes red if you're holding the bottle at a ridiculous angle. But perhaps the most interesting feature is that it's Wi-Fi enabled. If there is a nanny feeding the baby at home and the mum's at work, the results of the baby feeding are uploaded via Wi-Fi to the mum's smartphone at work, so she can tell exactly how much the baby has drunk.
So what you're seeing here is a magical chessboard by Square Off. It allows players to play with each other regardless of where they are in the world. So right now Bavia's off playing it via his phone, and an electromagnetic arm underneath the board is dragging the different pieces to the correct square. Pretty cool, eh?
Now, you know what, CES can really take it out of you, and I, for one, am already pretty sleep deprived. So what I have in front of me here is a device that is packed with all sorts of technology, and the claim is that it will provide within 20 minutes the equivalent of maybe 2 to 5 hours of sleep. And there's going to be some electrodes that are put behind my ears here effectively through this device that are transmitting signals up to my brain. So I'm going to try this on, and I'll see you in 20 minutes.
I'll tell you what, Rich has got the right idea. Walking around here, I'm absolutely exhausted.
I'm definitely feeling more relaxed than I was like 26 minutes ago. Of course, I don't know how relaxed I would have felt with just a 26-minute power nap, but I'm ready to rock and roll.
Sweet home
Vegas, home to world-class talent and singing superstars. And then there's Richard Taylor and me. This karaoke box uses professional autotune on your voice, which frankly makes you sound a bit like Cher on a bad night.
Sweet home Alabama.
Next stop, Caesars.
Lord, I'm coming home to you. Welcome.
It's not just neon illuminating the strip this week. Intel has put on a light show of its own, using 250 custom-made LED-strapped drones, obviously. Flying above the famous Bellagio fountains, the unmanned aircraft dance in sync with the water jets and the music. We caught up with the boss behind this madness on the eve of the performance.
So there are a few challenges with this space. It's a very tight space. You know, we're only allowed to fly within the fountains, and we actually created a 2-layer geofence so that if the drones were to ever go out, the motors drop and the drone falls into the water.
Wow, that was a pretty spectacular way to end the show, don't you agree? Don't forget, we live at BBC Click on Twitter. Hope you enjoyed our show, and we'll see you soon.